My friend, who's an ancient historian, he put it really well for me when he said history is written by the victors, but pottery is always of the people. For me, that really sums it up and sums up what the pottery of kind of Thomas Toft's period was, really. It was a record of the people of that time. I'm Emilie Taylor. I'm a ceramic artist based in Sheffield, where I'm from. I make large-scale ceramics like the ones here. They draw heavily on the north of England, on the post-industrial north, on estates that were maybe originally built as utopias, as many were post-war in Sheffield. And I combine my drawings about those places into the slip on the clay with a pattern, and I take my patterns from the arts and crafts period, as I feel quite passionately about their ideas about the way that craft could be part of social change. There's drawings taken from the estates, and then I work with people and develop poses that are inspired by Renaissance iconography, really. The gold I then use to highlight those moments of humanity or spirituality for the people that are nestled amongst the landscape. The pattern that I use, I go over it 3 times, so it's 3 layers of the liquid clay that builds up almost a flock wallpaper feel or look that I quite like as well. It reminds me of the inside of my grandma's house, which was in one of these places. So that idea of loving and decorating your home and the insides of people's lives is important too. I used to go to the Mappin Art classes. We used to meet upstairs and have a huge room where we could just really use materials, make a mess. I can remember painting with mops, with buckets full of paint. So it was very, very different to a school education and what we were learning. You know, drawing your shoe with a pencil and tidying up after half an hour. It was much more free and much more about engaging with what you were making. People often see my work and immediately draw a comparison with Grace and Perry. Yeah, the use of the illustration and the stories. I guess it's not particularly new within ceramics. There are a lot of people that have used pots to tell political stories. People doing it at the moment, I guess, are people like Stephen Dixon and Paul Scott, as well as Grace and Perry. You can give quite a hard-hitting image sometimes on a decorative pot, and people will come to the pot and stay with it and sit with it and gradually start to see the narrative within it. I remember when we made the work with people who were in recovery from using drugs and alcohol, I used to go to the exhibition at lunchtime and listen to people, and they were drawn to look and to linger on the pots and start to draw parallels with their own lives, in a way that I think people often don't do with, I suppose, a medium like photography or something. I sometimes think it's quite immediate, so people make their decisions quite immediately. One of my biggest achievements, I think, in my artistic career was having a pot with my grandma's council estate purchased by the Duke of Devonshire and put into Chatsworth House on the Great Staircase. That juxtaposition, I think, was enabled through it being a pot. People going through the house on the journey through that grand house stop and are maybe attracted by the vessel and the pattern, and then start to see the other messages that lie within the piece. I think you can stand and ponder and linger and move around in a way that you may have walked away from a 2-dimensional object. I remember when I did the Blackwell show, there was a gentleman who looked at the pieces and said to the curator, "I was thinking to buy one of these pots, and then I realised that I think they're quite political, and I don't think they're my politics, are they?" And I was like, yes, yes, that's what I think a pot can enable, really. It's like, oh, you've gone a bit further than you wanted to because you felt safe. I think the things that I'm talking about on the pots are definitely influenced by growing up in the 80s in Sheffield. My dad was a pigeon racer. On Saturdays and Sundays I'd go all over the city with him to visit his friends and to swap pigeons and to go to pigeon lofts. We'd be down on Penistone Road. He knew friends that lived in Kelvin who were using the lofts on Penistone Road. Then we'd be going out to Sky Edge. He'd have friends up on Manor. And so I'd be travelling around all these different places. My granddad lived on Arbourthorne and used to take me walking out through Gleedless. And I always just used to think that was such a stunning, beautiful place as a child. It's an honour to have a pot in Weston Park because it was my favourite place when I was a child. The view is over the Wyburn and Manor, looking towards the city centre from Manor Lane. And the pot has two young people under a lamppost on one side and then a young woman sat in a very reflective way on a park bench on the other side of the pot. The combination of the museum and the arts classes, it was a very special place in my childhood, so it's really nice to have a pot put back into the museum.